Hi, everyone. Welcome to Law School 101. We're going to get started shortly. I'm going to make sure we've got everyone in. I highly encourage you to change your Zoom view to speaker view unless you would like to see the grid view. Totally your choice, but that might make it helpful. So we will get started here in just a minute. I want to thank you all for being here tonight. I'm excited for y'all to hear more about law school and our panelists. All right, I think we've got the majority, so I'm going to go ahead and kick us off. Good evening. Welcome to Law School 101, sponsored by your Vanderbilt Alumni Association and Vanderbilt University Law School Admissions Office. I'm Sarah Whitney Anderson from the Alumni Association, and I'll be moderating tonight's panel. I'm so excited to host this distinguished panel, including current VU Law School students and the Dean of Admissions for Vanderbilt Law School. These folks have all graciously accepted to be here and give you the inside scoop about making the decision to attend law school, getting an edge on the admissions process, and then expanding on the law school experience for whichever law school you choose to attend. Quick note, we do plan to record tonight's meeting, so if you are uncomfortable with your face being shown, feel free to turn your camera off. I also suggest that you turn the view to panelist view or speaker view so that you don't see all the faces. Thank you for everyone who submitted questions. I've pulled them together for our panelists to answer tonight. We should also have some time at the end if you did not get all of your questions answered. Students, please be attentive as these panelists have given up their evening to be with you. I expect you to stay on mute and put away your phones and be as present as possible. Please let me know if there are any issues via the chat box. Now, before we address some of the fantastic questions you submitted, I'd like to introduce you to our panel and go over tonight's program. Make sure we've got all admitting our last few in the waiting room. All right, so our panelists. Todd Morton is the Assistant Dean and Dean of Admissions of Vanderbilt Law School, overseeing student recruitment, admissions, and enrollment. He received a Bachelor of Arts degree from Dartmouth College and Master's and Doctor of Education degree from Harvard Graduate School of Education. Matthew Kim is a third-year student at Vanderbilt Law School from Pasadena, California. He received a BS in Political Science from the University of Oregon in 2017. And Miles Malbrough is a second-year student at Vanderbilt Law School and is originally from Sumner County, Tennessee. He received an AB in Social Studies with the focus field in African American social mobility from Harvard College in 2016, and subsequently served as a Peace Corps volunteer in the Dominican Republic for 3 years before coming to law school. So now to kick things off, I invite Dean Morton to give you an overview on the admissions process.
Thank you, Sarah. Appreciate it. Yes, I think that the most helpful thing I can do is to go through pretty quickly because there's a lot to know, but sort of some basics about the law school admissions process, just to make sure that everybody is on the same page about and thinking about all the things that you ought to be thinking about at this point of the admissions cycle, particularly for those of you who are for applying next year, or for those of you in the future. This is the kinds of things to be looking into as you get ready to apply. The first thing I want to tell you about is LSAC, which most of you have probably heard of, is the Law School Admissions Council. They're the people who administer the LSAT, but it's also the place where you will submit your law school applications. Rather than going around to individual schools, you submit all of your applications through LSAC to the schools that you're applying to. They will also put together for you, you'll also send them your letters of recommendation and your transcripts, along with taking the LSAT, which your results will be sent in, bundled in with everything else. So you'll put everything in sort of a one-stop shopping place for each school that you're applying to will be LSAC. I do want to mention the LSAT, the standardized test that you take for law school admissions. Like all standardized tests, They are skills-based and you can prepare for them. You should practice, do practice tests however you feel comfortable. Do be aware that Khan Academy has an excellent test prep, LSAT test prep that's free of charge that you can get through either Khan Academy or you can find on the LSAC website. You probably have heard that some law schools, a few law schools will accept the graduate record exam, the GRE score, in lieu of an LSAT. I don't know how many schools are in that situation, but it's a relatively small number. And the rule is that if you've taken the LSAT, you will need to submit it, whether or not you've taken the GRE also. So if you've only taken the GREs and you're applying to other graduate schools, and I think it also apply to law school, that may be a possibility in some cases. And I mentioned CAS in the transcripts. The other important note for applicants to think about as far as LSAC is concerned is what's called the Candidate Referral Service, or CRS. And that's an opt-in when you're signing up for the LSAT. That's the one where you say, yes, it's okay for law schools to look at my information and provide me information and reach out to me. But the thing you want most from that process are application fee waivers. Just know that if you opt into that, that'll be an opportunity for schools to go through and to look at your information and to decide if they want to send you an invitation to apply with no fee attached, no fee required. You can also get fee waivers by going to various events that law schools are at, like the LSAC forums. The forums are when 160 to 200 of the law schools get together. Normally they're in person in the various 7 or 8 cities around the country. This last weekend, we just had the first one that was all online, which 7,000 people attended, and was a little bit of bumpy road at the beginning technologically, but it turned out to be a pretty great event at the end. And they're good opportunities for you to get information from lots of different schools and interact, person to person and face to face with representatives of the school, which often include students coming from recruiting also at those forums. Just touch on the law school applications for a bit. As I mentioned, they'll all go through LSAC. The most two important things for you to think about are their resume and your personal statement. Resumes, spend a little time on it. If there's anything that you can do, when we're reading applications and when law school admissions folks are reading applications, they're getting all this information about you and they're trying to pull it together into a whole picture. And resumes are a great way to help them do that. So they're very much appreciated. So whether or not it's requested or required, I highly recommend putting together a professional resume and take advantage of career services. They'll help you with that. But to provide those in your applications, they're extremely helpful and appreciated. The other thing that you'll find is that virtually all law schools will have an open-ended personal statement. And when I say open-ended, it is literally open-ended. And people will often ask what to write about. My best advice for them is to know on our side at Vanderbilt anyway. What we're doing is we're just reading every application from front to back. And as I mentioned, we are trying to pull it together into a whole picture of you. You'll hear admissions officers in law school admissions talking about a holistic admission process, which means that we're reading everything from front to back and we're taking all the information about you into account and trying to put it together as one picture of you, as a holistic picture of you as an admitted student. And in our case, the way I like to think about it is that there's sort of 3 areas of your life and about what you've been up to prior to law school. There's education, and there's community involvements and engagement, and there's the world of work. And what we're doing as we're reading applications, we're really thinking about, well, in all of those 3 areas, each of those 3 areas, what resources and opportunities did you have, and how did you take advantage of them? Not just to do well by yourself and prepare yourself for your future, but also to have a positive impact on people in the world around you along the way through all those engagements. And I think if you think about, you put yourself in our shoes for a minute and thinking about we're having all this information and trying to pull it together for you, and to know that that's what we're thinking about, that I hope provides some good sort of general guidance for how to approach the personal statement. It's an opportunity to get across information that doesn't come across in other parts of the application necessarily, or that might need a little bit of explanation that are not obvious by themselves. I also recommend, and most law schools will accept them after you've completed your personal statement and sent everything else along. If there's anything else that you want to tell that you haven't worked in elsewhere, if there's any information that you want to provide to the admissions committee to add an addendum, is what they're referred to in law school applications, which again are free form, and you can just literally write whatever you'd like to, the information that you'd like to have considered. Another thing to think about with as you're applying to law schools are law school interviews. In our case at Vanderbilt, we have, in normal years, we have in-person interviews with our terrific alumni who are all across the country and around the world. They are very much like they're very much like an informational interview. You sign up for them in the application. We get in touch with an alum who's in your area. In this case, if you're applying as an undergraduate at Vanderbilt, we have a terrific group of alumni right here in Nashville. And it's a great opportunity for both sides. It's a way for you to get across information that you won't otherwise get across in the application about you as a prospective student. But also it's a great opportunity to start networking and to learn a little bit about law school and the legal profession with wherever you are and whatever alum you're speaking with, because they're really happy to share that kind of information with you. Now, Vanderbilt and Northwestern are the only two schools that I know of that actually do that sort of in-person alumni interviews. But many schools will do sort of telephone or Zoom interviews during the application process. That's typically in a situation where they've got your application, you're sort of on you might be in the group that they're thinking about admitting, and somebody from the admissions office will give you a call and have a conversation with you. That's become a fairly common thing in law school admissions, particularly among the top schools. So just again, something to think about as you're going through thinking about the application process. Choosing a law school is always, and I think this will come up later on in the conversation, it's always something to think about. You can get a great legal education at a lot of law schools. There's about 200 law schools, 202 I think there are these days, law schools in the United States. You can get a great legal education at a lot of them. They are also very different institutions. Just like when you went through the college admissions process, you found that there's lots of great places to get a undergraduate education, but they're all different communities. They're all different fits for you. And fit, in my mind, is an extremely important thing, particularly when it comes to law school, because as our students will probably talk about this evening, you learn a lot about about the law. You really learn it with your peers, with and from your peers, and with and from your faculty members. It's a process where you're acquiring this great legal, this great analytic framework of how to think like a lawyer, how to think like a judge. But the way that comes around is best diving into such a thing if you're in a community where it really feels like it's a good fit for you. And fit can mean lots of different things. And I know you've all probably felt this and thought about this in choosing to come to Vanderbilt. And I'd say also that actually I think the community at the law school and the school culture there is very much in line with the rest of the university. We're all in the same time and on the same side and on the same team, and we're all pulling for each other, and we're all going to get better together. And that's very much the culture of the school. And I think it's a lot of the reason that our students choose to come in our case. But to find out about fit, it's best in the pre-COVID or post-COVID environment, because in the springtime, that is the time when the schools that have been admitted you will invite you to go to their on-campus admitted students programs. And that's a chance for you to really sort of kick the tires at a school. Hopefully we'll be in this spring, we'll be back in the in-person on-campus visits. If not, we'll be going through them with a lot of virtual events for students. And that's the last thing I wanted to mention, is that in this year in particular, we are offering at Vanderbilt, and most law schools around the country are offering their own virtual events. So please go online and take a look at our, go into it and find our prospective students page, and you'll find our virtual events calendar. And there's a lot of different things happening. We'll have some regular Q&A information sessions with admissions officers. We also are having Instagram takeovers that you can see. There's a variety of things going on, panels with students, and a lot of things, a lot of different kinds of events to choose from. So please take a look at those. I think I will, and just talk to as many students and alums as you can for all the law schools that you're considering as you're thinking about fit and what's different about each schools and what's the same. I'll leave the big overview there.
Perfect. Thank you so much. All right, students, Matt and Miles, it's your time to shine. So the first question for you two is, why did you choose to attend law school, and what were you looking for in a law school? Matt, do you want to go first?
Sure, no problem. Happy to. I always start with this story because I think it's funny, and I think it colors just how much I think growing up you know about being a lawyer, and how much you'll learn while you're here. I watched a film called A Few Good Men with my father. My parents actually met on a date. It was Top Gun. So Tom Cruise is like the reason I'm alive, and Tom Cruise is also the reason I'm a lawyer. I'm gonna be a lawyer because I watched that courtroom scene at 13 years old. I said, I want to go do that. But in actuality, it was more my interests were leaned that way. I loved to argue. I loved to argue with my parents. I loved English. I had no issue talking. In high school, I snuck away to do a version of mock trial in high school. And that's really where I discovered kind of my passion. And throughout college, I got exposure. And I just knew that this was something that I wanted to pursue. I wanted to help people. And I think that's the motivation for a lot of people that come into law school and into the legal field. And so I always had my eye on that. And I definitely really tried to learn as much as I could. I got exposure working for my local congressman who happened to go to law school. You know, that's one version of what you can do in the legal field is public service. And worked as a paralegal in a law firm after I graduated before going to law school. This was my final chance to really see if this was the life I wanted to live. You know, I'm going to watch these people at work for 10, 15 hours a day. And if that's something that sounds good to me after a year of doing that, then I'm pretty sure I'm in. But that's why I wanted to go to law school. In terms of what I wanted from a law school, I definitely, to echo what Dean Morton said about the community and learning from your peers, the education doesn't just happen in the textbook, and it doesn't happen with your professors. It happens with arguing with your classmates. It happens with figuring out how to approach arguments, crafting arguments, working through these complicated problems. If the law was simple, there wouldn't be a need for so many of us. So that was what I was looking for. And for the kind of tangible stuff, it was class sizes. I wanted to be able to communicate with my professors. I wanted that chance to get cold called, to get embarrassed, but really, in all honesty, to get that opportunity to strut my stuff and think on my feet with my professor. I wanted plenty of chance to do that. And going to a school where there's 60 of you in a classroom, only 60 of you, other law schools are much larger. I got those opportunities. And the culture here, I hate, sounds like a cliche, but it really is a place where the right type of students come here. You know, students come from all over the country. This is a national university, as you're all aware. You go here, and so I got exposure from people from the West, the East, the South. You know, the Midwest. My best friend at the law school that I met here, he's from Hattiesburg, Mississippi, and I'm from Los Angeles, California. Never in a million years would I think I'd have a best friend from Hattiesburg, Mississippi. But here we are, you know, two peas in a pod, best friends. And it's just, it's a special thing. And I think there's something about the fabric of the school. There's something about the way it's set up. And I just think about, you know, sometimes things are just like that. It happens to be a matter of fate. So that's what I was looking for. And Vanderbilt filled up a lot of that.
Wow, I don't know if I can follow that, Matt. I have some similar experiences to you, though. I definitely wanted to be a lawyer from a young age. I think, like lots of people, I was inspired by civil rights attorneys and the legacy of people like Thurgood Marshall, Constance Baker Motley, and I thought I wanted to do that. And I kind of got disillusioned with that. I don't know if anyone has experienced that a bit, but if you have, I can relate. I kind of thought that maybe lawyering wasn't the best way to do good in the world until I don't know, I saw a lot of examples that kind of regained my faith. Personally, lots of the lawyering, community lawyering and movement lawyering that's happening now kind of made me regain my faith in that. So, and then at the end of the day, I was also considering graduate school, and I figured law school is shorter than a PhD, and and I think I'll be able to do a lot of different things with it, kind of broadening my opportunities as opposed to laser focusing in on one specific career path. So those were some of the things that made me want to come to law school. And in terms of what I was looking for, also similar to Matt, actually, I really wanted community. In undergrad, I had a fantastic public interest community, as well as a fantastic Black community. And I wanted somewhere that had those things. And for me, in deciding where to go undergrad, visiting in person and spending time with current students was really what made me, helped me rather, make that decision. And the exact same thing went for Vandy Law. As soon as I came and spent the weekend, it was pretty clear that it kind of checked all the boxes.
Great. Okay, so next question for you. What specific classes, maybe a minor concentration or even extracurriculars and internships have best prepared you for law school? So this is definitely that question of what an undergrad opportunities can help them as they look towards going to law school.
Yeah, I'll go for it. Like I mentioned before, it was definitely that mock trial experience, just getting an idea of what it felt like in the courtroom, and just getting introduction to just the concept of advocacy, right? I think we see those examples as kids kind of standing up to the bully, right? Or helping out a student who needs some help. Like those are small, tiny forms of advocacy, but to see it really formalized in society, I think it was really impactful to me, just to see that it's possible, that this structure exists, and I wanted to be a part of it. My experience definitely working for the congressman while I was in college, volunteering in the Veteran Affairs Division of his congressional office. I wanted to help people. It felt great to help people. It felt great to use the tools that I had to speak up for somebody else, to use the skills that we will develop eventually in law school. I was very attracted to the idea of maintaining that ability and learning more about it. And my experience working in a law firm as a paralegal, there is nothing more clear about knowing what it looks like to work in a big law firm than actually being a support staff there. You see everything, the glamorous, the not glamorous, the long hours. I had a lot of meals with a lot of attorneys, working late nights, being in a support role, helping them phone calls, emails, printing, binder, creating, all of these things. And I got to glean a lot from just having conversations with them. A lot of them would ask me, "You sure you want to do this? Look at me, like I'm here with you late at night." And I just think the best thing you do is to talk to as many people as you can in the field to get a feel for it. Because as a 13-year-old, I watched A Few Good Men and thought, that's it right there. But that just goes to show how little is actually known about it. And I think Miles can talk about kind of how there's so many ways you could take this career. And I think that's super impressive. I think baseline what a law degree is proof of your ability to think on your feet, to be competent, to advocate well, to argue your position. I think those are great general skills in society, and I think those apply anywhere you want it to. And I've seen, while in law school, a lot of attorneys take this degree, have it inspire them, give them the tools to just go for it, whatever they wanted to do. And it's been very impressive to see. And I feel like my kind of intentional desire to be around people like that and ask and see them was very informative.
Yeah, for me, in terms of classes, I would say any course schedule that's reading intensive is what's going to help you. It probably doesn't matter at the end of the day what it is. It will help if it's something you like to read, but I think that pays off. And then specifically for me, like history and anthropology in particular, having to close read and kind of analyze text, I think that those are helpful skills before you get to law school. But in terms of extracurricular opportunities, I did a few legal internships, but for me, just because personally I didn't have too many responsibilities in those roles, I found that internships outside of law and work experience outside of law and education, where I had more kind of management responsibilities, were really helpful in terms of all that it means to juggle the responsibilities of law school and everything that comes with it once you're here. So I wouldn't necessarily be too caught up in making sure that you have what you think are the exact right internships, as long as you're getting great professional experience. I think it can be widely applicable from my experience.
Great, thank you. Okay, so now we're going to look at questions about applying to law school. So again, both Matt and Miles, can you talk a little bit about how you manage applying for law school, and maybe what is one thing that you wish you had known before going into the application process?
Oh, those are just really tough memories. I feel like I almost blacked them out of my mind. It was such a laborious process. I definitely say study for the LSAT, right? It is, as Dean Morton mentioned, a skills-based test. I would spend a lot of time. There, and I kind of wish I had not taken. I graduated a year early, and I took that kind of what would have been my fourth year to study and to work, and I wish I did it. I wish I did that while I was still in school, because I graduated early and was so happy to be done doing studying stuff that I just like lost all those skills for a little bit. And I wish I kind of kept doing it, integrated it into my schedule as a senior, perhaps taking it in October during your senior year and just kind of doing like that. So I think timing was one thing, is one thing to really consider. Because you do get burnt out a little bit, and being in undergrad, you are maintaining this rhythm of learning and skill building. I think having a really clear idea of where your targets are, knowing exactly where you want to go, spending time doing that research, I think is important, because fit is everything. And there is a lot you can learn on the internet. Reddit is amazing. Law school admissions. Like, I don't know if I can plug that enough as something that is just like, what do I do here? Like there is information, and there's like 10 people backing it up. And so it's good. And that helped me immensely. But aside from that, it was figuring out where you saw yourself, really spending that time to kind of daydream. What does this look like? I would recommend visiting campuses. I would recommend talking to alumni. And I would say really work hard at undergrad. And make sure that GPA is as high as you can get it, because if it's something that you want to do earlier on, you have the opportunity to commit to it and to game plan appropriately, and I think that's very important.
Absolutely. I would echo everything Matt said. Let's see what I would add. Probably just specifically, I would have treated LSAT study as a job in and of itself, particularly if you have the time, if you have a light senior schedule, if that's the time period you're doing it, or if you are taking a gap year working and you have evenings or weekends, treat that as like a real extracurricular project or job, and that'll pay off. I'll share this just in case anybody is on the off chance this happens to you and you get discouraged. I actually took the LSAT twice because I did not treat it as a job the first time. And and I did the second time. So yeah, that's what I would add in terms of preparation.
And what were your law school interviews like? What advice would you give to those entering that season?
I actually didn't interview that much, but I wrote my interviews were, if I could give you a version that kind of is close to that. I wrote a lot of addendums. I wrote diversity statements. I talked about my upbringing, my experience. My personal statements were something I've really paid a lot of attention to. I wanted to make sure that I was adequately kind of relaying, my passion and why I wanted to be here. I didn't know what a lawyer did per se as a bright, undergraduate, but I knew exactly what I wanted to do with it, and I knew that I knew a couple things. So making that clear and really pouring your heart out into that. I don't know if you want to make your law admissions officers cry or emotional, but hey, it doesn't hurt. I'm sure Dean Morton's read a couple that brought a tear to his eye and just kind of made him get all on board. But I really think that if you had 500 words, I would really try to make great use of them, because that can bring, I think, your application to life.
Yeah, similar. I didn't do too much interviewing, but I would say not only for interviews, but also with personal statements, as Matt said, to kind of focus on having a coherent narrative of what has brought you to this point and why it is. And that might sound obvious, but I think that sometimes we focus on kind of trying to highlight our accolades or why we deserve or have worked to get to a certain spot, which that's necessary as well. But I think that the narrative, the persuasive quality of having a good narrative in an interview is important.
All right, I'm going to give you a little bit of a break, and we're bringing back in Dean Morton. Okay, so Dean Morton, in choosing a law school to attend, how do you navigate the balance between affordability, prestige, and reputation?
Wow, that's a big one. And I think though that the answer is one that I already mentioned, and it has come up a couple of times, but it's fit. Because all of those factors are going to come together. Every school is its own community and its own basket of stuff, including cost. You put in an important one there, and the only way to make all those decisions is to really to walk up to them and face them and pay attention to yourself. I think it's interesting because and I really go back to visits and fit when I think about all of the admitted students programs that I've done, which are numerous at this point. But there are always people that come up at the end of a admitted students program, and they'll just tell me, Vanderbilt was really not on my radar before I came here, and now that I'm here and I'm seeing everything, it's all just coming together as this is the place that I want to be. And you'll have that experience, if you just keep looking and paying attention to yourself about thinking about, am I trying to make myself like this place, or do I really like this place? I mean, is this a place that speaks to me? Is this an approach? Is this a culture? Is this a place where I want to be, and the place where I want to, to hang this school's, diploma on my wall. I want to be a member of this community because it really fits. It really fits right. And if you talk to alumni, this is one thing that impressed me about Vanderbilt when I came here, because the alumni population has such a depth of affection and appreciation for the law school that you don't always see with law schools. But that and I think that's because they generally found that it was a good fit for them, for all of those factors that come together. That it just made sense for them to be there, and that played out into their careers and into their lives, because they will look back on it and say, yeah, they were some of the best years of my life, and also that they really, I learned things there, and I got things from that community that really not only helped me do well by myself and my family, but to have a positive impact on the world as well. So I think it's it's seeking out a lot of information, asking a lot of hard questions of the people, and really sort of paying attention to yourself and how you're responding to all these things.
Thank you. Yeah, our students did not shy away from the tough questions. All right, Miles and Matt, we're coming back to you. Can you tell us what a typical day in law school looked like, and how did the different years differ, especially since y'all are different years?
I was so scared my first year. I was so scared my first day. I was so scared my first final. And I had no idea what I was doing. You may think that studying for this is different, and it's because we're it's a new type of education. It's a different way of thinking. The thinking like a lawyer is accurate in the sense that we are looking to be persuasive. We are looking to be fact-based. We are looking to be evidence-based. We're also looking to be concise. I had such flowery writing. I was, so dramatic and in my writing, and I was just like, that's not going to fly here. We got to get to the point. We get to A, B, C, and D. We got to get all the way to Z. And so that was one change. So advice there. Tighten up the writing, make it more concise. If it's the more robotic sounding, the more to the point, the more blunt, the better. And just preparing for class was very difficult my first year, because cold calls, a great learning tool, as I mentioned earlier, are scary. It's scary, and public speaking and being able to, you can have the right answer in your head, but you need to be able to project that in a manner that makes sense, that's convincing, that's clear, that makes it sound like you know what you're doing. That the part of that public speaking confidence is something you'll learn in your first year. So the first year they scare you to death, and it was true, and it's a lot of adjustment period, and you don't know what you're doing until your first semester grades come back. And then your second year, you get really involved. You start trying to narrow down what you want to do, because you've gotten exposure to the general and basics, and then you see, okay, well, where would I like to be 5 years? What kind of attorney would I like to be? Do I want to be in this area or that? So you're spending your second year figuring that out, taking those classes that aren't the doctrinal classes, but the ones that are kind of niche and in a different, smaller sphere. I got exposed to healthcare. I was in a healthcare fraud class taught by great adjunct professors who also happen to be attorneys nearby in Nashville. And it was a very informative class, about 20 of us in there. And those experiences are the ones that you're having in your second year. And that's going to really help you narrow down what you want to do. You're going to figure out what you don't like. You're going to figure out what you hate, absolutely hate. You'll never want to do it again. You hope you never see it. But you're also going to figure out what you do like. And your third year, while this has been an interesting year to say the least, I'm sure you've heard that a million times. Now it's about preparing and wrapping up the last further bits of education and knowledge you can before you become an adult and exit the beautiful, comforting confines of education and school, which I started off hating, now I love it, and kind of so sad I'm leaving. But I start developing skills. So research capabilities. I'm taking classes thinking about the future. Our law and innovation program here at Vanderbilt, it's amazing because it forces us to think about what kind of law are we going to be exposed to 10 years from now, which is, when we're going to be the big players in law. What's going to be the big thing? How do I get ahead of it? Can I educate myself further? And so I'm building those skills right now, not necessarily learning about case law, but I'm trying to figure out how I can set myself up for when I start working in a year, how I can be better, as adequately prepared as I can, get the last bits and drops of it. So I feel like that's 3 years right there distilled for you. But that's just my experience. I'd love to hear from Miles.
Yeah, to kind of analogize what Matt described as the 1L experience, I would say it's kind of like learning to ride a bike, or maybe a unicycle, depending on how you look at it. But in the sense that when you're a kid and the first time you learned to ride a bike, like you knew what a bike was. It wasn't a foreign concept to you. But it wasn't until you actually got on it that you realized that you really didn't know how to do it. So that's a lot of what the day by day is I just remember spending time in the library and reading a case and then thinking, well, I just read it, but I know that what I just thought was important is not going to be what the professor says is important tomorrow. So you kind of learn exactly like Matt was saying, how you're supposed to be thinking, how you're supposed to be learning to think in your first year. And yeah, I'm still in my second year, so I'm in that process right now of the niche classes. So yeah, I would just echo what Matt said.
All right. Well, students, we're wrapping up. So if y'all want to go ahead and start putting your questions in the chat box, that would be great. And while y'all fill those out, Dean Morton, last question for you. Can you talk a little bit about financial aid and maybe even how GPA is waived with financial aid and how students can leverage different packages?
So scholarships and loans. I mean, financial aid at each school is a little bit different. In the big picture, there are only 3 schools remaining that have, and they're Harvard, Yale, and Stanford, that have need-based only financial aid. And short of that, every other law school typically has a merit aid available, merit scholarships available, as well as some schools will have need-based components. We at Vanderbilt do. And the other part of financial aid is loans. And those are available to qualified buyers, the government loans through the, just like undergraduate. I'll just run through quickly at Vanderbilt how we do it, and it's with some variations. It's often it's pretty much what you'll find across the system. Everybody who's admitted is automatically considered for merit aid. We're doing that on the basis of the whole application in the context of the admitted pool. So in other words, we don't do it with any kind of formulas or anything like that. But we're just looking at each person, and we give scholarships that are as high as maybe 3/4 tuition to down to maybe 10-15% tuition. That we do have a small number of merit-based scholarships that are full tuition scholarships, the Law Scholar Merit Awards. They're on the basis of an application that you submit along with your application for admission. I should also mention that we have an early decision program, and that's actually something, it's a little bit different in law school admissions than it is in undergrad, but many schools, and particularly the top schools, have early programs of one form or another. Our early decision at Vanderbilt is a binding early decision program. So you commit, if we admit you under early decision, you commit to attend. And we also have committed to giving those admits at least a $35,000 scholarship, which is about 54% tuition.
Great. Well, we will move into our student questions. So the first one is, for a college student early in his career, what classes would you suggest taking to figure out if you have a sincere interest in law?
I would love to plug my political science degree, just in order to maybe give it some usefulness here. Definitely reading focused. Miles talked about that. If your undergrad has a kind of undergraduate law class taught by a law professor, take that. They will mimic it for you in a way that's fair and allows you to kind of keep up. That was a great experience. I took 2 at the University of Oregon's law school, and they were taught by 2 professors and I picked those professors' brains as much as they would allow me to. So those are great. Philosophy, only B I ever got in college. I'm so mad about it still. Is human nature, philosophy 110. I will never forget it. But it was really interesting to think that way. And I feel like I do apply those skills still today.
I'm just going to throw in that we have, in terms of people coming to law school, the most common majors are, political science and economics. But at all law schools, it is a huge range of preparation that people have had. There's plenty of STEM graduates, have taken STEM courses, and that meshes nicely with, intellectual property and also with health and other areas of the economy and other areas of legal practice. But we also have, dramatists, theater majors. We have people, all across the board. I think the key, and several of them have been mentioned already this evening, but the key is to write, although you will, as Matt did, you will relearn how to write when you get to law school, because legal writing is different than what you get trained at as an undergraduate. But do writing, anything that has heavy analytic components, anything with, problem solving, and those can be in any disciplines. The content are less relevant than the processes. So challenge yourself, read, write, speak, work on those skills, analysis and problem solving, and that's the best you can do for yourself.
Agreed.
Well, great. We can go ahead and move on to the next question. How are grades compared overall, or how are your undergraduate grades compared to overall GPA in graduate school? So this might be for you, Dean.
I'm sorry. I'm going to have to ask for clarification. How are?
Yeah.
Hmm?
Sorry, I'm reading it. How important are individual undergraduate grades compared to overall GPA when applying to law school?
I see. We'll look at it. We read transcripts from front to back. I mean, it's great to have this summary information, and what we get on our end with the transcript analysis the law schools get from law services and the CAS report. And they give us a lot of slicing and dicing of grades by semester and year and everything, and overall also. But we're still reading transcripts. I think the thing to think about is on your side is, as I mentioned, there are sometimes things that you just want to mention. And so if there are individual grades and individual courses that have, something like, I can think of some from my sophomore year when I was in college, that there's a few things that I wanted you to know about what was going on with me, what was going on with my, with my work, I was working on campus and all those things. If you look at somebody's, you look at your own transcript and you see either individual grades or trends in grades or overall grades that you have some information you just want to offer, do it. Tell us what it is and we'll be interested to see it.
Perfect. Our next question is, how does the application and admissions process differ for dual degree programs with the law school and differ from general admissions? So this is also for you, Dean.
So dual degree programs are often the way they are here. You apply independently to both schools. One of the more popular ones for us is the JD MBA. So you apply separately to the law school and to the Owen School. Once you're admitted to both, you can do the 2 degrees, which would be, in this case, would be 5 years if you did them sequentially, but you can get them done in 4 years. You'll do the first year at one school, the second year at the other school, and then your third and fourth years will be a mix between the two. But so the key is you apply independently, and then once you're in at both, you can put together a dual degree program.
Great. Dean, there's a lot of focus on you right now, so one more for you. Does admittance through the early decision program at Vanderbilt Law decrease your chance of receiving additional merit aid?
No. So the way that scholarships work with the early decision program is that you'll get at least a $35,000 scholarship, so $35,000 or more, and that's an annual figure. And it's, as I mentioned, it's about 54% of tuition, I think. If you are deferred, if you're not admitted under early decision, your application will be considered again in the regular admission process. It's normally the case that if you weren't admitted early decision and you are admitted under regular decision, you'll likely be getting less than a $35,000 scholarship. But that doesn't always play out. But as a general rule, that's how it'll work. But so you'll be back in the general pool, and if you're admitted, you'll be considered for merit aid.
All right, bringing back Miles and Matt. So your last question, what is your last piece of advice for undergraduate students looking at law school? Anything at all. And it doesn't even have to necessarily be about law school.
You want time to think, Miles? I'll go for it. I think what would make you a very successful law student is if you spent time thinking about how this profession is a service-based profession, in the sense that the job here is to serve others, to be in service of others. I think if you develop a passion and find a way to help people and have a desire to help people, I think that no matter all the rash of stress and hard work, as long as there's a passion and a desire to positively impact the world, you're going to get through this. I think what's so inspiring about my classmates and this experience is just how much we all hold that in reverence. And it's inspiring every day to talk to people, to be around people who are trying to get better themselves so they can better the world. And they're doing it in a million different ways. And it doesn't have to be public interest, it doesn't have to be government service. It can just be helping clients, companies, individuals on the street. This is, we're all working to be advocates. And I think that's something I learned at a young age. And that's something I wanted. I wanted whatever job involved helping people and helping and working on behalf of them. And I think if your attitude and perspective is in that space, I think you'll be successful no matter what happens, and you'll feel really good about what you do in your life. I think it's important to love what you do. We're going to spend a lot of time working, right? I'm about to start this long, arduous process of being a worker, and I think it's important to know to be passionate about what you do. And so I think going to law school and being a lawyer is a great vehicle to unlock that. So I really encourage you all to think about that and to work that out in your minds, spend some time on it. But that's all I got.
100%. I agree with that, Matt. I would also say, get grounded in something before law school. And it doesn't really matter what it is, even if you're coming directly out of undergrad. If you really felt passionate about what you studied or what you did as an extracurricular, but being grounded in a certain set of experiences or a particular academic, disciplinary perspective, whatever it may be, I think helps you once you get into law school and you have 3 years of what's essentially a lot of intellectual exercises that can oftentimes be very abstracted from personal experiences, when at the end of the day, our conversations are literally just about the outcomes of how people in the real world are affected. So I think that is important to keeping yourself in check and knowing that your time in law school and your time as a lawyer is going to really affect people in the world.
That was lovely. Y'all are making a career counselor blush over here. I'm so happy. And we ended perfectly on my timing. That's the first time that's happened with one of these panels. Proud of myself tonight. Just realized I was on mute. Sorry about that. As you're trying to get all these things done. Thank you so much for being here tonight, students and our panelists. I wish we could give you abounding applause, but know that all of our smiles and faces are just so thankful for your time tonight and answering all of these wonderful questions. Students, thank you for being so attentive and sending in these great questions. I'm truly thankful for this evening. Make sure to join us tomorrow. We will be having alumni join us from all different law careers. So Law 101 is not over, but thank you to the Dean and our 2 students, Matt and Miles. Thank you so much. And if I can help you all in any way, let me know. I did just submit a form in the chat box, so please help us make this event better with every year. So please fill that out. And you'll have a wonderful night.
I'm going to sign off too, Sarah Whitney, unless there's anything you need from me this evening.